Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got Jim Tracy, speaker, book writer, entrepreneur, pilot, one of the most interesting human beings you'll ever get to meet. I'm so excited about having him on the show today. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony. What a joy and what a treasure to just spend some time with you, man.
Well, we've covered a lot of stuff in pre-show, just talking about life as an adventure and, with your 18 grandkids. I'm jealous, by the way. What does it mean to be family? I mean, I think it'll tie into what we're going to talk about in the show, which is about culture and crafting culture.
Yeah,
I think it starts with the training for that really starts in family.
yeah. I think you're right. I think that most of the things that our parents wanted to teach us that when we were coming up were character traits rather than do this lessons. They wanted to teach us to be kind and they did it by showing us how to be kind or correcting us to be kind. So yeah, kindness is one of those virtues. So yeah, I agree.
It's one of those places where we weren't trained well, right? I talk about this all the time in the world where we spent a lot of time teaching everybody all the business stuff, right? How to be a great, how to operate by bells, right?
Mm,
Here, you get up, be at the first bell, right? How to
yeah,
go from class to class with bells, right?
yeah,
People taught me how to do that. Great. Behavioral stuff,
yeah.
fantastic, right? How to learn math, great stuff. Great English, great stuff. Science, great stuff. But they didn't spend a lot of time teaching me about what does it mean to be a human and go through these human experiences,
Yeah.
right?
And I think part of that started and it's really my generation's fault. You look at the boomers and we fostered the millennials, and the first thing that we told them was that, yeah, well, this is the first generation where mom might not be at home when you get home from school. So here is the key to the house. So we kind of formed the latchkey kids, and we did so with great intentions and certainly need, but all of that training that my mom did for me, a lot of the generation that behind me didn't get that. And some of that was like, get out and play. There were 8 kids in our house when we grew up, so we always had somebody to play with. But there was a lot of training, and I wouldn't call it behavioral modification. I'd call it just coaching and mentoring. It was pretty darn cool way to grow up.
That, that family environment, and we talk about how that our generation changed that, right? I mean,
Mm,
all of a sudden you went from this having a mother at home, someone that was stable, you could count on. I used to come home, my mom was there every day,
yeah,
right? Sometimes she'd be watching her soap operas, and it was like the stable place to go home to. Um, and then later on, she goes to work, right? And then all of a sudden, I go from having a mom at home to and my dad left early, came home at 5 o'clock every day. Same
hmm,
left at 5, came home at 5. And
yeah,
now my mom's going to work. Right
yeah,
now, all of a sudden, I come home and there's no one there.
yeah.
Right,
Except you.
except for me and some of my bad ideas. Right,
Yeah.
some of my bad decisions.
That spelled chaos, isn't it?
Yeah, right. I mean, there was a lot of that going on, right?
Yeah,
Jim was like, all of a sudden, I got, oh, look at that. Anthony's home, or little Tony's home by himself,
yeah,
and there's no one here to tell him no.
yeah. Anarchy.
Well, it's
Single
just
person anarchy.
yeah, right. It left to opportunities, learning opportunities. Let's call them.
Sure. There you
Right.
go.
There were great learning opportunities. So, having a mentor at home, some of that changed a little bit, right, with society. Now
Hmm.
we're realizing there's some effect to that. And same with our workplaces, right? We've got people in the workplace. We hire them, we bring them on. Welcome to our company. Here, drink off the fire hose.
Yeah.
And by the way, we want you to be good people, and we want you to be nice to everybody and get along.
Hmm. And not only that, we don't pay a lot of attention to the way that we teach. And the way that we teach really ought to align with the way that people learn. And there's two kinds of learning. I mean, that are this broad generality, but the first is what we do in American business, which is akin to training by trauma. Just do it, and I'll tell you when you screw up, and and it's going to hurt. And if you don't get fired, then we'll kind of have the test after we have the lesson. But training by trauma is you get the test first and the lesson after. And the other kind is learning from other people. And that way they paid the tuition in advance. And now you get to come along and you get to actually get the lesson before the test is given. And when we teach and train like that, it's really called mentoring. It's really saying, "Hey, I want to come alongside you." There's a Greek word called parakaleos, and it means to actually just walk alongside you down the same path. And when we do that, even if we've been down that path before, it's helpful to people who are doing it the first time, man.
Well, so small, what I've noticed is when I do small lifts in training, I can only imagine that pre-industrial revolution, we walked tribally,
Hmm.
right? I just imagine being in a tribe of men or tribe of hunters where you had an elder. An elder would teach you how to walk in the woods or to walk, carry your spear or to show you how to
Yeah.
hunt. And you were with an elder and you got guided, on a daily basis, on a regular basis, right? You had someone there who you walked, you watched, you meant, and
Hmm.
as you make a path or as you make a progress, they might have marked you or scarred you or gave you a rite of passage or some note that said, all
Yeah.
right, you went from being a kid, now you're joining our group, and here's your first little notch on your arm or something, but something that said, all right, now you're part of this group.
Yeah. And even in the early industrial revolution, they had that as well. They called it apprenticeship. So you couldn't be a welder, you couldn't be a pipe fitter, you couldn't be a plumber, you couldn't be an electrician. You couldn't do that unless you had walked alongside someone who was showing you the ropes for 4 years. And now they're like, no, man, I'm going to do that myself. I watched a YouTube video and that makes me an expert. Yeah.
Well, there isn't right. Just about everything you could be a doctor. Just watch YouTube enough, right?
Hmm.
Oh, look, I can do shoulder surgery. Um, but there isn't those little micro trainings. There was a great book I read, and look, don't make fun of me because I'm making L. Ron Hubbard analysis, but that Dianetics book, he did a great
Uh-huh.
job of talking about um, small incremental training,
Mm.
right? Where you would train just like micro trainings, right? Just
Hmm.
little micro trainings. He's got a communication piece in there where he talks about, all right, we're going to learn to communicate with each other, right? Get my ideas from me over to you,
Hmm.
right? Let's break down what communication is. What does it mean to have an idea in my head? How do I get this idea to translate over to your idea? And he would start with these just like little tiny steps, like sitting in a chair,
Yeah.
getting present, right? Getting from here and starting a conversation, right? And then how to start a conversation, how to start and stop a conversation, how to continue a conversation. And
Yeah.
those one of the best things I ever learned from that book was a little bit about sometimes we go way too fast in our training. We go, that
Yeah.
that whole piece of just give them a test and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. That medical model that you brought up is brilliant because if you think about it, they don't hand you a scalpel and say, hey, take that appendix out. First, they'll take you into anatomy and they'll say, that's where the appendix is, and here's what it does. And then they're going to take you into physiology and say, here's the subcutaneous muscles that you have to actually penetrate and go through it in order to get the appendix. And then like you're going to stitch grapefruits for a while, so that you know how to close up what you started. And then the medical model, especially in a surgical procedure, is watch one, and then do one, and then teach one. Because when we do those three things, we add that progressive learning that you're talking about. When you watch one, you're taking in information. You're not doing anything. You're just grabbing information, but it's audible, it's visual. And then when you do one, you're actually adding the mechanics to it. And then when you teach one, you're actually teaching somebody to think in advance of what they're doing. And when you look at that, that's a brilliant training model. Perfect.
Yeah, I love that. There was a line, you don't get it until somebody else gets that you get it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the piece when you're training somebody, then you actually get it. Right. Because
Yeah.
you're getting, I think that's uh, such a valuable way of looking at it. When you're sitting down with a group and you're looking at, an entrepreneur or a company,
Mm.
and you speak with companies all around the world, and are there commonalities to what breaks their culture, right? Where the breakdown is happening? Why is it breaking down?
I'm kind of working with a specific size, and what I find is that entrepreneurs get to about 10 people, and then they're so saturated with duties that they can't expand themselves. So they just keep going at that plateau level. And so when companies want to get beyond that, it's like somewhere in that $3 million revenue range. When companies want to get beyond that, we have to teach the owner to not collect all these tasks. First, when I work with companies, the first thing I do is everybody else goes in the front door and they're looking for the ivory tower. And hey, how do I talk to the boss? And I do the opposite of that, man. I go in the back door. I go and I see how the guys in the shop are doing, or how the guys in the factory, or whoever they are, whatever their business is. And I'm like, all right. So I was in one business and I was there 20 minutes. I walked in the back door. I was there 20 minutes before somebody asked who I was or what I wanted or why I was there. I mean, it was an operational security nightmare. But, and from that point, then you move towards what is the desire of the founder. When we look at history, when you wanted to form a company, what did you want it to look like or feel like for your people when you began? Because I don't know many people that said, "Gee, I want to start a company, so I'm gonna build an organization with 1,000 people." It's like, no, I can do this better. I like doing this, and so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it so well that people want to hire me to do it. And then they take that and they go, "Wow, I hired people, and now I got to take care of them." And then sometime when we get past that $10 million mark, we go, "Oh, it's really not about them anymore. It's really all about the customer," which is a terrible mistake. It's really all about me, which is a worse mistake. And so I help people return their cultures to what they wanted when they had this wonderful idea that they were better at something. And like I said, people, the most three important parts of your business. Doesn't matter what business you're in.
For me, I noticed that my early entrepreneurial days were a lot of me showing the world something,
Mm.
right? I wanted you to see me, right? I wanted to prove something, right? I wanted to, maybe it was my, I never graduated college, so maybe it was my college degree. Maybe it was my wanting the world to see something. I was trying to prove something for sure. Right.
Yeah.
And you could see that maybe, and by the way, it worked well. It drove me. It was the driver. But then later on, that kind of wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right. And then somewhere in there, that became a little bit empty and meaningless. Like, all right, enough proving who you are and your ego. But it definitely drove you to begin. Right. So
Yeah.
that's good enough.
Yeah.
And then today, as I've progressed on in leadership, my goals are really to bring something different to the world, right? How can I be of support to others? It's been a much more fulfilling role as a leader in that you start to really, how can I support others?
Yeah.
And your leadership role changes a little bit, right? Where you start to notice that it's not about them seeing you, but it's about seeing others. And
Yeah.
how could you light up other people?
When I look in the rearview mirror, some of the things that make me proud, we started an organization with two of us, and we ended up with 4 locations, 180, 200 people. And then we rolled that out into private equity and maybe 1,000 people. But as I look back, there are individuals who became husbands and fathers and homeowners and CPAs and taxpayers. and some of them didn't have much of a shot. Some of them were working construction or washing cars when they first came to our company. We taught them some technology, but we also taught them that what you do is a reflection of who you are, and who you are is only determined by what you do. And so what you do is the very attributes that you exhibit. And so if you see something fall on the ground and you pick it up rather than, or throw it in the garbage, whatever, rather than step over it, that's what you do. That's who you become. And so my we're in a meeting with a very large company. My son, my partner, was sitting beside us, and we were trying to get on as a vendor with them. And there was like 10 people on the other side of the table and this 2 little guys on our side of the table. And they looked at us and they said, "So how do you teach your people to make decisions?" And my son Ryan just looked across. He said, "We ask him to do the right thing."
Mm.
And there was another guy at the table on the other side of the table, another younger fella trying to make his way in the world, and he didn't like that answer, and he was going to kind of prove him wrong. He says, "What if they don't? What if they don't know what the right thing to do is?" And Ryan kind of shrugged. I have a very understated son. He just shrugged and he said, "Well, we try to get him to do the best right thing."
Yeah, right,
and
right.
and all that did was make the other guy mad. And he said, "Well, what if they don't do the best right thing?" And Ryan said, "Well, we give him a phone and we ask him to call us. We'll help him do the best right thing." But really, if the essence of management, the most important thing we can do is teach people to choose rightly. Sometimes it's taking care of the product. Sometimes it's taking care of the customer. Sometimes it's picking up that piece of trash in the parking lot and walking it over the garbage can. And don't worry about if anybody's looking or not. Sooner or later, somebody will notice.
Well, I think that's uh, in a world where I feel like the employees that work for our companies are more distracted than ever before,
Mm,
right? How do you help them just one be present at the office?
yeah,
Right? I feel like a lot of the people that they show up in offices and there's so much in there. Like when I was a kid, no one had phones, right? Go to every desk in our office, and between them and the computer, there's a phone,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
you got just that coming at them, social media coming at them. You know, people have access to just the amount of stuff that's coming out. So just when getting a present employee,
yeah,
right? I think half the people that we're working with is just noticing that they'll do the right thing
yeah,
if they're present to know it,
yeah.
right? Sometimes I wonder how do we start to work on that? How do we find and support them in a world that's just so filled things coming at each and every one of us?
Yeah, one of my most popular speeches that I give surrounds the generations. And if I look back, my grandfather was born in 1903, and my youngest granddaughter now was born last week. Granddaughters, and that's 2025. So there's 122 years of history, and I can tell you from the generations at the beginning till the generations at the end, I got along with pretty much everybody. So, how do you do that when there's this generational discord that we don't get to pick? It's just a fight. I mean, my grandpa told my dad, "Your clothes are funny, your music's bad, you guys are a little crazy. You're doing that big band music." And my dad looked at our generation and said, "You guys are hippies, and your clothes are bad, and your music's awful, and blah blah blah." And then we looked at the millennials and said, "Rap, you got to be kidding me! That's not music. And why are you wearing that?" And now they're doing it to the Ys, and the Ys are doing it to the Alphas. It's the same stinking song. So, how do we learn to get along? Well, number one, generous listening. I always hold up a finger. The biggest finger on my hand is the middle finger. It's the most important. Generous listening. Generous listening is opening your eyes, putting your phone down, opening your ears, closing your mouth, and making direct eye contact with someone. And before you start formulating your answer, listen to the question, listen to the problem, listen to their feelings. And then the second one is the ring finger. The ring finger symbolizes relationships. Relationships are meant to be built. You can't build it. You cannot build it if you don't spend time on it. And the third finger is the little finger of respect. Everybody says that little third finger, the pinky, some people call it, is not that really important. But if you lose your pinky, you lose 50% of your grip strength. So the pinky becomes important in its respect. And I asked generations, I said, is respect given or earned? And some people say it's given and some people say it's earned. And I say, yeah, but I want to be the guy. I want to earn it before it's given, and I want to give it before it's earned. And if I'm that guy, are people going to not respect me? Of course they are.
I get it, right? As you can start to find one, the generosity of listening.
Mm.
It's not
Flip that
something.
phone upside down.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
come on. I'm present. I'm present. You're sitting in a
yeah,
meeting with somebody and you're being present and you're staring at your phone and you're
yeah.
wondering why they think you're inauthentic,
Mm.
right? It's in our life all over the place. You're having a one-on-one conversation with the phone right there or on your knee, and you're like, no, here, try to leave it in the other room.
Yeah, that's a crazy good point because if you look at Google searches for 2024, do you know what the most searched term was? Authentic.
Mm,
People are searching for authentic. They want to know what it looks like. I want to know what it feels like.
mm.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah, finding authenticity. Like, what does it mean to be in a world that's so full of things and coming at? I mean, today a human being can get more ideas in one flip of
Ugh,
social media. Do a 2 hour stint in social media than our grandparents could have done their whole life.
yeah. You know, it's pretty
Right?
funny. Because of the influence that I have, I look at Facebook very, very scarcely. And so when I do, and it's usually to communicate with my grandkids, but I look at it and I take things at face value. And my wife just shakes her head. She says, "Jim, it's on Facebook. It doesn't have to be true."
No, right. Come on, it's there, and it's such a new medium, such as a new medium. And what's right, what's real, how's it work, how much attention should I put on it, and what it's doing to us, right? Like, look, same things happen with the foods we ate. I mean,
Yeah.
for thousands of years, we had to live where our food supply was.
Hmm.
Now we've got so much flipping food. I throw out more food than my grandparents ever ate.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
I
it's
hear you.
just the amount of abundance we have in both tech, and some would say, oh, it's supposed to be great. We have more technology, more information. I'm like, no, it's great and that we have it, but I'm not necessarily sure that more is great, right? Because
Yeah.
there's so much coming out. Some of it's real, some of it's not authentic, some of it's designed to be a little malevolent, right?
Yeah.
So that some of that more isn't necessarily the healthiest we can be.
Yeah, and one of the things that we learned, excuse me, coming out of COVID, when you get up on stage and COVID starts, all of a sudden there's no stages to get up on, and you go through a year of people not having conventions and not having places where they get together where there's actually pretty wonderful, uh, quasi intimate human contact with peers, where you're coming in close and you're saying, "Man, we didn't have the conference last year," and so coming out of that, the demand for people to have speakers come on stage who had, number one, that they had real experience, and number two, that they could relate it in a fashion where it would inspire. Motivational speaking is like, man, everybody got a cool story. But if you can bring impact to their lives or actionable things that they can put into use, I mean, generous listening is a really easy concept, but it's hard to do if you're practiced at not doing it. So what we have to do is we got to turn that boat around. And what COVID showed us is that we as individuals, as human beings, we need human contact. We thrive on human contact. And so that's why people were dying to get back into the office. Before that, they hated to go to work. I don't have to go to the office, man. I don't want to do that. It's Friday. I can go fishing. And now all of a sudden, I really would love just to go into the office and see somebody without a mask on.
No, there's something about that human connection. Like the same
Mm,
reason why I like going to the gym. I've got, the ability to work out at my home, but
yeah,
something about going to the gym, it
exactly.
just does something for me, right?
Yeah.
There's something I'm there. Got the equipment. There's something about the energy from other people working out that
Yeah.
just brings me a little bit more focus. Maybe I try a little harder. I'm engaged a little bit more. Same thing happens here in the office, right? I think those who work well in the office usually work well at home, but it's the
Hmm.
ones that are stuffer in the office
Exactly.
that need those people that work well around them to
Uh-huh.
support them. And I think we're noticing today that there's something about being able to uh, play off of each other, that group
Hmm.
energy, the group dynamic, that more than ever, I we were a in the office kind of company, and I always feel like, hey, look, if our superintendents could be on a job site every day, you can be
Yeah,
in the office, right?
exactly. And you
Yeah.
know, when you get when you get a solo supervisor that's running around job to job to job to job, there's the guy who can't wait to get to site just so he can actually talk to his people and touch the site and lay his hand on something that's productive. And just because, yeah, they just because they're a great supervisor doesn't mean they're not a little bit lonely because they came from a crew probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at when you're working at uh, groups and you're noticing that cultural stuff is misaligned,
Mm.
what are some of the things you do to start really bringing them back in alignment with each other?
Well, I mean, the first thing you do if you go into a business is observe and listen, and then, and then the questions start to come, and they become obvious pretty quickly. One of the questions that there's actually two questions that are really meaningful when you walk into a business. And number one is the culture today where you would thought where you thought it would be when you began the business? And so this is a founder level question. And when they look at me and they say, no, then we just do a deeper probing dive and say, what is it that you wanted it to look like when you were saying, I'm going to build this dream? And then they tell me, and then and then if you go to the people and they don't match that at all, then you have to go back to senior management. You have to say, if what you were thinking wasn't true, would you want to know? Because if you don't want to change, I can help you. But if you want to make this the best part of your dream of running and building and scaling a company, um, what are you willing to do to make sure that it happens? And so when you ask questions that are deeper probing like that, because you know what the secret of a great culture is a great leader looking around and choosing to do the right thing. It's so simple. It's so easy. If you walk around and you're a grumpy butt, don't be surprised if you're surrounded by grumpy butts. You're modeling it to them. But if you're walking around being an encourager, and as an encourager, like if you walked onto a job site and you said, I saw you without your hard hat, you're fired, get out. What would happen versus a guy? I actually went, I was at a job site. I went ahead of the crew. I knew where they were going. I bought a dozen donuts in advance. I knew that they had it dialed. I hid in the trees. We're in the Pacific Northwest, and I hid in the trees, camoed out. It was like, it was going to be epic. I was going to catch him doing the right thing. And the guy jumps out of his truck, and our rule was your butt leaves the truck, the hard hat goes on, and he didn't do it. And so I strolled out of the woods, and oh, you could see on his face, he just was dying inside because he knew he'd done wrong. And I laid a dozen donuts up, and I said, gentlemen, I think we have to talk about what we're supposed to do and why we're supposed to do it. And I explained to him that if you're 150 feet up on a communication tower and you drop a wrench on somebody, it doesn't matter if you have good habits or bad habits, as long as the good habits prevail and you put your hard hat on. So let's always establish good habits. You're out of the truck, the lid goes on, and here's the Jonas. I'm gonna write you up for this because you're a lead and I expected more of you. But I just want you to know that I'm the guy who has to go back and talk to your wife if you get beamed, man. And I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna be
Right.
selfish and I'm gonna share some donuts. So I'm gonna write you up and we're gonna actually do it better next time. I could have fired him. That was the
Yeah.
rule, man. I could have fired him, but what I did is try to teach him. And I tried. And when you establish a culture, that's pretty authentic, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Look, just
want
straight up.
to. I don't want to see your wife tell her you got a spud wrench poking out of your noggin. I don't want to do
That's right. That's right.
that. They get it.
Well, we want people to go home safe every day,
Mm,
right? And, or learn behaviors that are really, especially those ones that are safety related, right?
yeah,
Those you got to be crystal clear and set those tones
yeah.
like, hey, why'd your parents smack your hand, or why'd your parents grab you, or why'd your parents, look, you could die from that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time my kids ran out the door, right? And there was a big busy street out there, and I was really scared about that, right?
Mm,
I made a big noise about it, and I for sure scared the bejesus out of them because I knew the impact of them doing that. Now I don't know, were there smarter ways of training it? I don't know that I could do that. I don't know. I don't know if I had the skill set at the time to go, well, Nicholas, I need you not to run outside the door, and here's why. Nope, I
Buicks
just
are
ran in,
heavy.
stop, ran. I scared I scared
Yeah.
the shell out of them, and
Yeah.
now my dog is the same way. My dog didn't get that, and she ran
Mm.
out there and got hit, and now she learned she didn't get hit hard enough where she died, but she took a nice little spill from a car. It just kind of
Yeah.
whacked her, and now she kind of knows, hey, I'm not going to go out that front door
Yeah.
running like that again. So
Exactly.
sometimes we learn through some of those hard lessons, and so we're looking at the culture. Right? I'm going to really dive more into that culture. So training safety, training systems, training processes. Is it something that we do over and over and over again? Right? When you go through culture, does it start with having processes where people know what they're doing? What are the things that really create? And what do you mean by culture? Let's start there. What do you mean by
Yeah.
culture?
So if I look back in my history, I had an office manager once. We were manufacturing engineered wood products, and I was the head of the division. And inventory was really important because you're basically counting cash. And so we had this office manager who was like uber fantastic. Everything she did was above board perfect. It was like crazy, except inventory. She did it so fast that she made multiple mistakes. And so here's a person who has a obviously wonderful skill set. And we come to her and we're like, hey, what's with the inventory thing? And she's, oh, I'll get it fixed. So the next month, it wasn't fixed. It was still done early. And the next month, it was still bad and it was done early. So we had to redo it 2-3 times. So the controller in the company and I got together with her and we said, okay, here's the deal. Perfect is better than early. Rather than chastise somebody, you need to do a deep dive into root causes and go, I know you do things fast. I know you want it done before everybody else, but here's the deal. That's not the measurement that we're going to use. And it could have been a process. It could have said, maybe we're going to do a double count. Maybe we're going to have someone walk alongside you, but it would be better if you can get people to choose to do the right thing. See, especially with safety, Anthony, I find that we engage processes to help people not be stupid.
Yeah, right.
That's
Right.
not
Right.
scalable.
It's not,
That is
it's a tough
never
one, right?
scalable. So what happens if we train people and mentor people to make good safety decisions and own them, and then they teach people to make good safety decisions and own them, and they teach people, and now you have geometric progression rather than arithmetic punishment. That's what's scalable. If you teach someone not to hit themselves in the head with a hammer, and they come from a culture where hitting yourself in the head with a hammer is like, okay, if you teach them it doesn't hurt if you do that, all of a sudden, wow, they're going to teach somebody else. I know it's a silly example, but there's so many examples, especially in the construction field, where if in fact you teach them and explain to them and help them gather understanding and then get them to teach somebody else, it just makes life so much easier. It's
Mm,
scalable.
mm.
Yeah.
I love, getting people to do the right idea, get them present. Hey, look, let's just get them in a culture of learning how to, and just be present to do the right idea. Look, it's we always do the right idea. We always do
Yeah.
what's right, right? So don't be a half-ass. Don't be, um, you know, the problem is I feel like when you say that, I get the answer back, but but people aren't, they don't get it. They
Yeah.
don't get it, right? I'm always working with one of the leaders in our company, and they're like, "But they didn't get it. I
Yeah.
told them what to do. I showed them how to do, and they're not getting it."
That's a
And
cultural breakdown. They didn't model it.
yeah,
If you model it and the people who work for you model it and the people who work for them model it, or if they don't buy it, you got to figure out whether they buy it or not, especially in a culture where integrity means everything. And you don't get many second. I mean, say you're doing commercial construction, because that's what you guys do a lot of. If you're doing commercial construction and you come alongside someone and you say, you know what, that's not straight. I need it straight. Like, you didn't put, I saw you installed it. It might be a piece of rubber trim behind a toilet and nobody cares and no one will ever know.
But
But you know
everything
what?
matters.
We don't do it that way. And so I will help you. I mean, I'll get down and reinstall it myself if I have to, but I'd rather have you notice that and then have your people understand that that's not the way we do things. That's a cultural breakdown that starts at the founder level. When you forget why, if you forget your why, I mean, Simon Sinek has got that famous keynote about why. Well, that is our why. That is why we started the business in the first place. We could do it better. We knew how we were going to. And there's so many lessons that transfer from that. And then we forget to teach them.
Jim, do you believe that people are naturally good people at their core?
Um, I think that people want to be good at their core, but I
Okay.
also think that that can be overcome by someone choosing an easier path.
Got it.
And
Got it. They shortcuts, or they're taught shortcuts, or right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, because we live in a society that relates to, assimilates, and then desires comfort. Sometimes doing the right thing, yeah, it's not so comfortable, but it's still the right thing.
Yeah. How does your being a believer shape your training?
Wow, what a terrific question. Um, when I choose the right thing, I mean, sometimes the legal thing isn't the moral thing.
Mm.
And sometimes, uh, your law has to be a higher law that you have to drink in, assimilate. And so I mean, there's a ring on my right hand and it's got a Bible verse on it. It says Matthew 6:33. And
Mm.
that verse is simple. It says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, right? I only got to worry about the first two words, man, because if I'm doing that, I'm seeking first. What am I seeking? I'm seeking to please my master.
Mm.
Okay, so if I seek first, I already got it dialed. I already got it dialed. So it affects everything I do.
I'm with you. Right. Once I get that dialed in, like if I try to find, all right, what's God's will? What's
Yeah,
God's will for us? And at a fundamental level, I think we know that, right? We at our core, us, we know that, don't we?
yeah. In
Yeah.
my worst moment ever, it was a very personal, very family related moment. I went running down our driveway middle of the night and I'm just screaming. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what. And so the only thing that can come to mind is what I'm screaming. And I'm going, seek first, seek first, seek first. And I'm trying to remember who I am before I do something stupid or before yeah. So I think that if we can, especially as business founders, if we can rely on ourselves to do the right thing, then other people are going to see that because we do it in good moments. We all have less than stellar moments. Okay. I will be the first one to admit, people look at me sometimes and like, that guy is a dunderhead. Well, that's probably true. That's probably true. But you know what? He was a dunderhead who's going to try and choose the right thing. And when he screws up, that's where authenticity really comes into play. We don't have to be perfect. There's no requirement in business for us to be perfect.
No, practice these principles,
Let's, yeah,
right?
let's be real. And when you screw up, you go, it's on me. It's my bad. I made the mistake. I'm going to fix it. I'm not going to let it hurt you.
I think that's what our faith teaches us, right? Our faith teaches us to keep practicing these principles. You're
Yeah.
not ever going to get it perfect. We're flawed. We're flawed from the get-go. And the thought that we're ever going to be some sort of white as snow, some pure white as snow believer, that's not going to happen. That we're flawed
Yeah.
in our development. It's just there is a flaw to it. The best that
Yeah.
we can do is continue to practice these principles, right? To continue practice these in all of our affairs, right? How do we start to really bring them to everything that we do? If you're when you're talking to young folks, and I know you lead all kinds of different groups, and you look
Yeah.
at young entrepreneurs, what do you think the single best advice you can give a young leader about culture is?
Wow. I think that is going to fall under that choose the right thing category. I mean, and when you choose it and model it, but two, you brought up that we're all flawed. I'm like, I'm the biggest stinking sinner there is, man. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get through tomorrow. But I got to get through today first, and so I need that grace. And so if we exercise and model the same grace that we've been given in the same fashion that it was given to us, like if you have an employee who's trying hard, I'll take a pound of try over 10 pounds of talent every time. Every time, all day long. Yeah. And because there's a person that at the end of the day that I can work with. So if I have advice for young people, it's there's so many things. Be an encourager, influence people in doing by what you do, not by what you say. Be meek. Meekness is, and people are like, well, that's not good. I'm like, okay, let me show what it is. This is a Lamborghini on the Autobahn, and it's being passed by a Volkswagen, a 63 Bug. And you know what? The Lamborghini lets it by. It's strength under control.
Wow.
And if we can exercise that strength under control, yeah, hey, man, we got the pedal if we need it. We can downshift and we can smoke that Volkswagen. But at the end of the day, we don't really need to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's beautiful. Jim, I love having you on the show. It's one of those places where you've got some great wisdom. Just your faith, your leadership, your training. If people want to get you to come to their company and sit down and work with them on their culture or their organization, what's the best way for them to reach out and get you?
Yeah, I think probably the best way is there's a website, thejimtracy.com. Now, I am the Jim Tracy, but there's a couple others. So one was a baseball coach, but
we'll put all that down below. We'll put that all down there. Jonathan will put all that down there and make sure that all the contacts. Any other places for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, the podcast is doing really well on YouTube. We've just passed 500,000 views, so I'm pretty excited about that.
So what's the podcast name?
The podcast name is The Grampion, Grampion. And Grampion is a name I got from my grandson, Wes. I wasn't so bold as to give it to myself, but it's Grampion Champion, place where Grandpa chats with champions. And you should come on.
I'd love you anytime. You know me, I'll be on anytime. I love talking. So awesome. Jim, I'd love to be on your podcast. I love who you are. Just love to be part of you and your family. We didn't get to talk about all the stuff you do, flying private jets. Just, you are such an inspiration for me in my life, and the work you do. Having you on here was like a dream. So grateful to have you on today.
All right. Thank you, man. It's my pleasure and my treasure. All right.
Yeah. Hey, audience members, thanks for being on today. Hey, by the way, today's Jonathan's. He's been on multiple weeks. He's looking to get a raise. Look, he gets 5,000 more followers this week. He gets 5,000 more followers. You get the kid a raise. So if you could right now for Jonathan, you better tell him you get a raise. Come on.
Thank you. Yes, I would love that.
Get him a raise. Jonathan's looking for a raise. 5,000 more followers this week. He gets a raise. If you guys could do that right now, like and subscribe. We're so grateful for you. And as always, thanks for listening.